And we're joined by Pat McGuigan with CapitolBeatOK.com. And Pat, Happy New Year to you. And of course, this new year brings much of interest to talk about. And one of the things that was interesting earlier this week, Governor-elect Fallin announced that the former President Pro Tem of the Senate, Glenn Coffey, is going to be her Secretary of State. And has going to take some interesting roles along with the traditional role of the Secretary of State.
Yeah, he'll be they're making it pretty clear he'll be a key player on policy, and I guess I'd liken it to the model of Mike Hunter and Tom Cole during the Keating years at different times, and at times intersecting, playing a very significant role in guiding the ship of state. And Frank Keating was certainly no wallflower, and neither is Mary Fallin. So Mary Fallin's the decision maker, but Coffey's going to be a key player. He understands the legislative process, of course, brilliantly, magnificently. When he arrived at the state Senate in 1998, there were 15 Republicans. He leaves with there being 32. There were 33, I guess it was. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. In any case, as he leaves the Senate, there's only 16 Democrats. Now, this is a consequential figure in state history. In addition to that policy role, I found most interesting, and it's sort of thing like, you know, congratulations and condolences at the same time,
right, yeah.
Because he got the portfolio to handle relations between the Fallin administration and the Indian tribes. That's going to be a tough assignment. There's a lot of arguments that ensued from the last compact. A lot of people advocating a review of the compact in terms of gaming revenue, and then on top of all that, you've got water coming around the bend, yeah, with competing sovereignties. Not only the state government and the various Indian tribes, but competition among the tribes themselves in terms of what the not so ancient treaties and other legal provisions mean in terms of where we are now. I think Coffey was a good choice. There's a little bit of controversy on the subject of a legislator going to work for a government right away. However, these are unappropriated funds
right,
that finance the Secretary of State's office. So in the end, I don't think it's going to be a legal problem at all for him to take that post.
Governor Henry leaves office with a very high approval rating, 70%.
Yeah, remarkable, 70.8. You round it off and say 71. Yeah. We'll round it up in this case.
What can Mary Fallin take from that or learn from that?
Personality and style, and she has a likable style. I think the thing about Henry that was impressive is that even in pretty tough times, he rarely raised his voice, never held a grudge, yeah, which was Reagan-esque in style. Kind of reminds me of the late Dewey Bartlett, who was one of my first political heroes, a guy a lot of people have forgotten, but very kind and considerate, and an ardent believer in what he believed in, which was a brand of conservatism. Henry always tried to bring people together, and he describes both former Speaker Binge and the incoming Secretary of State Coffey as dear friends, and I don't have any reason to believe he doesn't actually believe that. I don't think it's feigned. So that's the first thing. And the other thing, though, that's intriguing about Henry is his willingness to lose. And this was a lot like the late President Gerald Ford. Ford was willing to veto bills, maybe because he was a creature of the House of Representatives in Washington. Well, similarly, Henry was a creature of the state Senate. There was no skin off his nose, apparently, to veto a bill and get overridden. He did get overridden at times, but he vetoed things he didn't agree with. Sometimes he got overridden, sometimes he was sustained, and the next day he would be sitting down in meetings with the same people. That's how government probably ought to work. The executive has an important function, even in a state like Oklahoma where the legislature in some ways is supreme. So I think this is, the Henry model is a good model for Oklahoma politicians, especially in the executive branch.
He learned to reach across the aisle. Do you think that Mary Fallin, maybe she won't have to, but do you think she will?
I think she will on some things, and I think she should. Coffey has decent relations with Andrew Rice. It was a little testy at times, but they know each other. They're both Oklahoma City guys. They respect each other. I think that it's the better part of wisdom even when you're in charge and even when you have the votes, to try to work with folks when you can, and then reserve the big fights for the big fights.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Read about all this and more at CapitolBeatOK.com. We'll see you next week.